Welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. On today's episode, we're going to take a look at the question of if the Giants miss the playoffs this season, is Farhan Zaidi going to get fired? And, they lost 10-2 to the Dodgers yesterday. They're now 6 games under 500, sitting at 19-25 on the season. They're actually not far off of the pace that they were on last season. They're only like 2.5 games out of the third wildcard spot as it stands. It's still super early in the season. The NL is pretty terrible, so it may be another year where 84 or 85 wins gets in. So they're certainly not out of it. And you're one hot streak or one hot month away from being right around or just above 500. So I mean, they're certainly not like out of this by any stretch. And for those of you thinking I'm going to just go on a big Farhan bash here, I'm not. This is not actually. I'm not going to go and just wave my fist at Farhan in this episode and bash all the things that I think he's doing wrong. It's not like that. I'm just here to kind of objectively look at where they're at and, kind of what his job security might look like and what I think the answer is on whether he could/should be fired if they miss the playoffs or if there's any other avenues that they can go or he could go that might save his job even if they're going to miss the playoffs. But before that, as always, I appreciate the support from everyone. I think last I checked, we're up to like 470 subscribers. It's awesome. If you're not subscribed and you're enjoying this content, please do hit the subscribe button, like the videos. I'm going to start doing live shows with Dan when we do our Thursday shows once I get up to 500. So, like I said, if you guys aren't, pound that subscribe button. I'll be on NorCal Sports Network tonight on their post-game show after the game. Hopefully we can talk about a Giants win. That'd be a really nice thing to talk about. But there's a lot of good, even with the bad, even when they're losing against the Dodgers, there are some good things to talk about, especially with the kids playing right now. And they're flashing some good things. So, I touched on a lot of that in yesterday's video, but we're going to get back to the question at hand, though, which is whether or not Farhan's going to get fired if they miss the playoffs. And I think the answer to the question is if he keeps operating the way he has for the last 5 years and they miss the playoffs with the veterans all playing significant roles, and when I say that, I mean almost exclusively veterans playing significant roles, especially in the everyday lineup. I think the answer is an easy yes. I don't think you can go into another year where he is put off development to actively pursue winning, and you just can't continually fail. And it would be 3 straight years missing the playoffs since that great run. And the major league active roster does not look significantly better than it did back in 2019. And yes, I get it. That team was dreadful. There was not a ton of talent, but they still did have guys like Madison Bumgarner playing well. They had Buster Posey. They had, Crawford and Belt and Evan Longoria. And, they had talent on that roster. They weren't very good beyond that talent, but they did have, really stacked up against this current roster. It's not like they were eons worse than what we currently have when you look at it like that. So when I look at this, though, you cannot, I've said it. I said on yesterday's episode, you can win with veterans. You can lose or win with young players. You can't lose with veterans. And he's lost with veterans for 2 straight years. If you do that 3 straight years, you're gone. Like, there's no excuse not to fire him. There's nothing that he should be able to say that saves his job. That's just my opinion. I don't care about the injuries. I don't care about the excuses. You know what they say about excuses, and that's just the reality. But like I said, I do think there is an avenue that he can potentially earn the right to keep his job. And what he would need to do is he has to demonstrate that there is a genuine future with this team and what that future might look like. And when I say that, I mean, if you play all the veterans and you lose, what's the future look like? Okay, a bunch of these guys are going to opt out or be gone, or they're going to be another year older, so you're probably going to just decline more. There's not a future there. You went all in, you push your chips in, and you stunk. Like that. That's what your future is. That's what you've given us, because all you're doing still is hoarding prospects that you refuse to trade for, established stars or good players. and you're also not giving them a chance to come in and be better than what you have. And yes, they have some young guys playing, but in this scenario, I'm basically saying they're going to end up sending a lot of those guys back down, which they probably will send most of them, but you're not keeping these guys up to play. So he would have to make a massive shift to what he has done and how he has operated to this point. And yes, that does entail going into rebuild mode a little bit. Now, I don't necessarily believe that the Giants need to go full Astros, 2000 early 2010s Astros rebuild where you just tear it down to the studs, getting rid of every single guy making any kind of money and just tanking seasons, winning 50 games. I don't think that's necessary with this team. Now, you might stink for a year or two, but where I look at the Giants is you have a decent amount of talent. I know many people disagree with me. They do have quite a bit of talent in AAA and the majors of young players. Guys like, Kyle Harrison, Patrick Bailey, if he's healthy, Luis Matos, Elliot Ramos, Casey Schmidt, uh, Marco Luciano's. You have the Carson Wisenhunts, Mason Blacks in the bullpens. You have Camilo Duvall. He's more established, obviously, but you have Randy Rodriguez looking really good. Eric Miller has flashed. There are, Blake Sable's shown some good things, especially at the plate. As a hitter, as a defender, he's questionable. I still think he's better than Murphy, but and then even down at sack, I mean, you still have guys like, like I said, Wisenhunt, Reggie Crawford just moved to sack. Hunter Bishop, I mean, he's former first round pick. He has talent. Whether he puts it together, we'll see. They have a long list of guys with talent. And the way he would need to operate is in a way that is, I'm going to let a lot of these guys play. And this is if they fall out of it, like they have no choice. They have to sell off at least some of the veterans. You're going to have to move off of guys like Nick Ahmed. You're going to have to move a guy like Michael Conforto, who I think he's having a good year. He might be able to fetch you something. I don't know if you could get anything for Blake Snell. I don't know if you could get anything for Matt Chapman with their contracts and their, kind of weird situations. We all saw how it played out with Carlos Rodon, who even had a good year, but because of the uncertainty, people didn't want to give up anything of substantial value. But they do have players that, while it would be unpopular, they have players like Camilo Duvall, who a team like the Baltimore Orioles might really want. And what do the Baltimore Orioles have? Incredible farm system. You might be able to get their third or fourth ranked prospect, especially because Duvall's one of the better closers. He's young and he's cost controlled, which is like ideal for a team like Baltimore. They could afford him for 3 or 4 years while they have what they think is a World Series contender. So you might be able to get their third or fourth prospects, or like one of those who happen to be ranked 21st and 23rd in the top 100 right now. You have a guy like Lamont Wade Jr., who's 30 years old, who's putting up this incredible season. And yes, I love what he's doing, but has value. He's cheap. He has another year beyond this year. These are guys that have value. Even Tyro Estrada, who, yeah, I'd probably be more inclined to keep Tyro. He's still, I think, 28. He's got a couple more years under contract for a few more years. He's also pretty inexpensive. So yeah, you probably would want to keep Tyro, but the reality is like they're going to have to make decisions to play some young guys and then go improve the farm system even more to where they can, have some kind of future. And then not only that, like you can't stop there like that. Unfortunately for Farhan, he's dug himself a hole so big that even if you go that route, if these guys all stink, it's all for nothing. Because the reality is you've had 6 years to produce. At that point, you'd have had 6 years to produce major league players from your farm, and you had failed miserably. And yes, they'll have hopefully a guy like Kyle Harrison. Guys like Randy Rodriguez might be good, but like if none of these other guys are good, you don't have like a core to build around. And you hear the word core, and a lot of people think that means you have to have homegrown Adley Rushmans and Jackson Hollidays and Gunnar Hendersons and Holliday hasn't really taken off, obviously, but Gunnar Hendersons and all these other guys on the Orioles where they look like stars. And it's like, no, you don't need an Astros Carlos Correa and George Springer, and you need guys that I'm going to be able to lock that guy in to start every day next season. Like if Casey Schmidt shows that he can hit at least a little bit, you're going to go, okay, I think he can play either short or third next season. And we're going to go into the year with him starting. If Elliot Ramos continues to do what he's doing now, maybe starts flashing a little more power, but continues to improve, you're going to say, I know he's going to play left or right field next season. You know, you need these core everyday players that are going to be able, you're going to be penciling in every day, guys to build the club around. And, you know, a guy like Elliot Ramos has potential to be a middle of the order hitter, in my opinion. Still, I know there's been a lot of souring on him as a prospect over the years. He's not the same caliber prospect that he used to be, but it doesn't. I don't necessarily think that means he's not as good as people hoped or what he used to be. He was originally touted as like a 5-tool prospect, but with his body type, he was never going to be likely to be a big power threat. And the hit tool has always been a bit questionable, so it's kind of evolved with him. He has 4+ tools. His speed, I think people try to act like he's actually slow when he's 73rd percentile on sprint speed. You know, he's just not going to be the base stealing threat, but he might still be a double digit base stealer. And he could, you know, and we'll see what happens with his hit tool. But, you know, you have guys like Matos that still have a 70 grade hit tool. They can be exciting. His defense he's not it in center field, but you know, we just need to know what that core is. And right now, the way I look at the roster is you currently have 3 or 4 guys that you genuinely can build around. And I would add Doval into that list just because of his age and everything. And he is one of the best closers, but I still think that it may, if they fall out of it and if it looks like they're going to have to start tearing it down, I do think it would be the prudent move to trade him if you can get a guy like, you know, one of those prospects from Baltimore that's like one of the top guys. I think it's the prudent move because I do think there are candidates internally right now to take over as a closer in a year or two. Guys like Reggie Crawford or Randy Rodriguez, who I'm super high on, who has looked filthy when they've used him. I think there are some candidates to take over there. But where I'm getting at, though, is like he has to show a future at the end of the day. Like you have to be able to look at it and go after this season and say, okay, you know what? Next season we're gonna have Logan Webb, Kyle Harrison. Whatever. We'll see with Snell and Chapman what's going on there, but you know you have to be able to say we have Logan Webb, we have Kyle Harrison. Maybe a guy like Mason Black gets a bunch of starts and we feel good about him. I've liked what I've seen from him and we feel like he can be in the rotation, or a guy like Landon Roop, who has shown a lot of good things. Maybe Carson Wisenhunt turns the corner, Birdsong, you know, any of these young guys, which, you know, we'll kind of see what they end up being because you're a prospect at the end of the day. Nothing's guaranteed there. But, you know, maybe we have 3 young pitchers that we feel good about. And then hopefully Patrick Bailey gets healthy. And you go, okay, we got Patrick Bailey, we got Jung Hoo Lee in center field. Hopefully one of our infielders, you know, maybe you keep Tyro and then you feel like, okay, Casey Schmidt or Marco Luciano, if you move him off the short, wherever he ends up, you know, maybe one of those guys establishes himself. Hopefully one of Elliot Ramos or Luis Matos or both establish themselves as guys that you're like, yes, we can build around this guy. Because these guys, some of them have potential to be really good. Like Luis Matos has the potential to be a good 2-hitter. But you got to play him and you got to let him just play every day. And you got to stop messing with his approach and trying to get this guy to yank stuff over the fence in left field. Let him go, you know, foul line to foul line, hit line drives. That's his game. I think he could be a 300 hitter that controls the count, but not if you're trying to make him yank everything over the fence. So there are so many things that needs to go right for him to be able to, you know, show some kind of future with the club, but I don't think it's impossible. So I'm not going to sit here and just absolutely tear into him today. Yeah, I'm as frustrated as a lot of you are, but I'm trying to be objective looking at this. And I do think the Giants ownership and really if some of his guys start showing that they could be really good, if not stars, and then at the same time adds to the farm system and gets a few guys, I do think it would create some equity with Giants fans at that point. Now there are a lot that are just like, no, I'm done. I'm out. No matter what happens, like get this guy out of here. And I understand that. I've been against him being the president of baseball operations for a couple years, so I totally get that. But let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna actually ask this question probably on over. I'm gonna ask this question to Dan tomorrow when we do our video, and I look forward to hopefully being able to do these live streams soon. And other than that, go Giants! For the love of God, beat LA, please. I'm getting tired of them. And we'll catch you guys all tonight on NorCal Sports Network. See ya.